Triggering is in itself already a process that gives a myriad of benefits and drawbacks. Depending on who you are and your general environment, the balance between negatives and positives may be skewed in one direction more so than the other. However, for those involved in a cluster trigger, or whatever one prefers to call it, there is the added concern of the quote-unquote kiss-kill dynamic, a phenomenon where individuals have the tendency to develop strong feelings towards another individual in their cluster group, with said strong feelings being either hostility and/or affection. To reference a not so particularly reputable but nevertheless interesting in-universe article, under the understanding that hostility is referring to cases of murder and attempted murder, it was found that within clusters, 50% of strong relationships formed were purely hostile, 25% were formed through affection, be it friendship or romance, and 10% were instances where hostility and affection coincided. What the remaining 15% was is not given, but one can assume it to be cases where no quote-unquote passionate relationships were formed. As a side note, for those in the 25% that formed a romantic relationship, 10% of those individuals engaged in the latter regardless of their previous sexual preferences. Now, on to how shards factor into the dynamic. In a more general sense, we can refer to the shards' drive to compel their hosts towards conflict to explain why a higher percentage of hostile cluster relationships form. Though, to more specifically relate to the cluster trigger process itself, the kiss-kill dynamic is born out of the fact that clusters are stress tests to gather data on powers. Due to the latter, it is easy to infer that in order to examine, let's say, how derivative subpowers are used, the shards would want the respective hosts to interact more with each other in one way or the other. Similarly, the shards may also want cluster triggers to further interact to compare and contrast the different sets of powers born from the same event. That's about all there generally needs to be said about the kiss-kill dynamic, so until next time.